Hello everyone, hope you are doing well. I'm glad you can join us today. I'm joined by Neil from the Anfield Wrap to get Liverpool's fans' perspective ahead of that game at Anfield on Sunday. Can we kick it off with your team though, please, Neil? What's your thoughts on your season so far?
I think we've started well. The results have been good. We've shown that what we've got, which is depth and range of attacking options. We haven't been brilliant for any full 90 minutes, apart from maybe the game against Villa. It's not been incredible performances, but what there's been is a ton of resilience. They could lose the game against Chelsea, they hang in there, and then they have a good chance towards the end of the game to win it. Next up, Bournemouth, they go one down, they turn it around, and they actually kill the game off when they're down to 10 men. Newcastle, 10 men, whole thing's this big emotional maelstrom, but Nunez comes off the bench, bangs two, great day. And then Villa, they do well. And then last time out, Wolves, again, go behind. Not great first half, really poor, in fact, but then turn it around, win the game. 3-1, excellent second half. So they haven't, apart from maybe Villa, I say, they haven't put a full 90 together, but they look good.
And Europa League as well, off to an all right start there too.
Yeah, but also, again, same pattern. They go behind, don't play that well at all to start the game. It's a great goal, don't get me wrong. I mean, the lad fires it 25 yards off a corner. So it's not, and it wasn't like it was off the back of endless pressure. But Liverpool went very fluent. But second half, it improves, get the penalty, slightly contentious penalty, but they get it, score it, and then run away with the game. Salah comes on and looks incredible. So, this is the thing about this Liverpool team is it's got goals in it. It's got goals in it every single time it gets on the pitch. You fancy it's going to score. You probably fancy it's going to score 3. And that's a healthy position to be in.
It sounds like you've also got goals conceded in you as well, though.
Very much so, and that's that's got to eradicate. Liverpool have conceded across the last. I mean, you can go to the end of the season before last. We were poor last season, but even the end of the season before that, when we win the 2 cups and we nearly win the league and the Champions League, we go behind in a lot of games in the second half of that season. And we went behind in a lot of games last season, and we continue to go behind this season. So there is something about Liverpool's first half an hours that's got to improve.
Is that down to player performance, tactics, attitude?
So
all 3?
It's a bit of all 3, and it's also, to be fair to them, they've had a bit of hard lines. Like the one last night, the lad just, as I say, he absolutely wallops it 25 yards out, and you could say, could it be closed down a little bit better? Maybe don't give the corner away in the first place. But if someone strikes it on the volley 25 yards out and puts it in the corner, you are a bit like, well, what are we all meant to do about it? And there's been a little bit of that over the course of the campaign. I think there's a little bit of Liverpool trying to play the way in and opposition sides going for them early. I think that's happened. And I think also when you get a reputation as a team that concedes early, the opposition go, these concede early, let's go and get at these. So there's an element of that as well. And then there's a little bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy. And then there is a little bit on, tactics or personnel. So you end up taking something from a number of pots. But I think that ultimately it's got to stop because you can't keep coming back. At some point, you come up against a side that's able to be sufficiently robust and then hit you on the counter again. The one thing that hasn't happened this season, that was happening last season, was no one's got 2. So no one's got 2-0 up against us. Wolves have a great chance to do it. Don't take it, and we run away with the game. So as long as that continues, then obviously we give ourselves a fighting chance. But it's got to stop soon. I don't think it necessarily will before the next international break. But then the games get a bit more straightforward for us. We're still in a really horrible run of games. After the next international break, it becomes a bit easier.
Europa League, then. I want to ask you about this from, obviously, you've got used to the Champions League. You've won it. You're used to playing in the elite. You've come into the Europa League this season. What's your sort of attitude towards it? Are you bothered by it, or is it a bit of a, it's not the Champions League, so I'm not too fussed?
Desperate to win it. Liverpool win European football tournaments. We're in the business end of European football tournaments. I've got no interest in the... it's not just even the idea of the Champions League qualification place. I mean, if you want to be really cynical about it, if Liverpool want to play Champions League football next season, the coefficient that you get for winning the Europa League is great and helps with that. But it's not even about that. Liverpool are a European football team, and if you're a European football team, you're at the business end of European tournaments. So as far as I'm concerned, desperate to win it. That doesn't mean, I thought that Moyes' selection was really interesting in the first group game, and Liverpool made 11 changes as well, although some of those changes arguably made Liverpool stronger. So Van Dijk and Konate played rather than Matip and Quansah. So there is a small element there where, it's not quite a pure 11 changes, if you see what I mean, because we're managing players' minutes and all that, but you can still make those changes in this group stage, especially given the nature of the group we've got. But that doesn't mean for a second I'm not desperate for Liverpool to win it. The business end of it for us, I think, comes if we can get ourselves through into March, which we'd expect to do, and then we're in the last 16, and then we go from there. But as far as I'm concerned, I am, and I very rarely say I speak for any other Liverpool supporters but myself. But in this instance, I think the vast majority of Liverpool supporters really want to win this tournament.
Good, I like it. So you should. So what's your aims for the season then? You've discussed the Europa League, but in terms of the Premier League, and then the 2 domestic cups.
My constant position is a good season is when you've got anything to play for in May. A great season is when you win one of the things you've got to play for in May, and an even better season is if you win one of the big 2. Now we're only in a big one. The Europa League, whilst I am desperate to win it, it's not the same as the Champions League in that regard. But I think if we can hang in and around, then I think we can challenge for the title. That's not the same as win the title, but I think if we can get through these first 8 games, so after next 2 after the game against you, which I don't think will be straightforward at all. I said before that we played Wolves, that all 4 of our next 4 were tough challenges in different ways. But we find ourselves after this, we go away to Tottenham and then we go away to Brighton. 2 really difficult places to go. So if we can get to that stage unbeaten in the league, then it's not that we've got to win all 3, but if we can just stay unbeaten, keep picking points up, especially in the tough away games, just get a point, it's absolutely fine. Then we can see where we're up to against City. The 4 we've got after then, and I don't mean any disrespect to any of these clubs apart from one, is that we've got Brentford, Luton, Nottingham Forest, and Everton in the 4 that follow in the league, and that to me is where you go, all right, that's got to be 12 points. That's if you've got serious ambitions, that's got to be 12 points. But if we can just keep ticking over between now and then, as I say, don't lose, win 2 of the next 3, draw 1, and I do include the game at Anfield because I think they're all quite different challenges. Brighton now, they play a Europa League game before we go there, and given their result last night, they now need to win that. That's away at Marseille. That's not an easy game. So their stronger team and their bigger match that week now is the game against Marseille. It's not the game against Liverpool. So that's fallen nice for us. But the flip side is we can all see that Tottenham look like a good side in a good moment. So that could be difficult for us. And I think that West Ham have shown this season already, especially the performance of Brighton, but not just that they're going to be an exceptionally difficult side to break down. And I'm expecting it to be tough at Anfield. I don't think it'll be straightforward at all. So these are tough games. We've just got to hang in there. But if we can, I think we're capable of pushing City all the way.
A lot of high-profile departures from Anfield this summer, a lot of high-profile arrivals, and one big high-profile player you missed out on as well. What did you make of your transfer activity?
And I'd like to at least one defender. I think it was an opportunity. I think what the Europa League does, and you get to see it last night, is it's actually an opportunity to bed a few players in the group stages. And I think if we could have gone and got one young defender who we liked, then I'd have been pleased. I'm pleased with the 4 that we've signed. I think that all of them look like they're going to offer something that we need. Szoboszlai looked great so far. McAllister had impressed until the first half against Wolves, when it looks as though he was just absolutely knackered after all the travel and playing in Bolivia, really close to that kickoff. Gravenberch was great last night. I don't think he'll feature sending off from the start in the game at the weekend. And Wataru Endo looks like he's been brought in to do a very specific job for Liverpool. I don't think he's necessarily one who's, I don't think he's going to be ending the season with 30 starts in the league. But I think he's one who'll be part of helping Liverpool close difficult games out, especially away from home. He'll play his part in the Europa League and in the domestic cups as well. And he'll be a useful player to have around the place here and there. As I said, I liked one more. We didn't need anything additional in attack. We've got 5 great attackers and a couple of good young prospects. But I'd have liked one more.
Yeah, my fellow Scotsman being one of those.
He's tremendous.
I'm excited for him. I have to confess, I'm excited and I'm pleased to see him in and around the first team at Liverpool. This is obviously a personal. My advice to subscribers right now that aren't Scottish, like, shut up, what are you on about? But personally, I'm quite excited for him actually, and I'm pleased to see he was heavily involved in pre-season. He's had some minutes now in the first team, and I'm hoping that he can just pick up some minutes here and there in the group stage game. But I've got high hopes for him. Actually, I do think he'll be some player. Last question about your team before we talk about my team. When people watching the screen right now haven't seen Liverpool play this season, which players are in form?
A fair few. Szoboszlai has been brilliant. Robertson has been excellent. Scores last time out as well. The goalkeeper is the absolute business. But all the front 5, they've all contributed. They've all got on the score sheet, and they're all genuinely, he'll only start 3 of them against West Ham, but they're all genuinely looking the part. So, Salah is the creator supreme at the minute, and he scores on Thursday night. Nunez has exploded and is really difficult to play against. Gakpo's linked the play nicely. He gets on the end of things as well. He's smart with his movements. Diaz is electric, especially in the final third, and when he's getting more and more direct, he's brilliant. And Jota is arguably the most unassuming of them. You know, he does a lot of good things, but it's with a minimum of fuss, and at times it looks a little bit bobbly and stuff like that, but his movement's terrific as well. And he's able to arrow into the penalty area. So the thing to worry about anyone who's coming up against Liverpool, it's the idea of, well, firstly, what combination of three will he start? But the second thing is he's then got options from the bench. He's always, and that's what happens. That's what does Wolves in. You know, Wolves deal with one set of Liverpool problems really, really well, and then it just gets harder and harder with every substitute that he makes.
My team then, West Ham. What do you make of us?
So the whole of the game against Brighton, I thought you were great. I thought it was so smart. I thought that they were, you know, this idea of, I don't think it'll quite work the same way against Liverpool, because I think Brighton actually stumble into it with a bit of inexperience. They stumble into the trap that West Ham have set. But the ability to break at such pace and with such directness, you know, I think is impressive. I was absolutely delighted last season when you won the Conference League. I actually watched the final out, and there was a lot of West Ham in the pub I watched it in when he scores the winner, and it was brilliant. You know, genuine scenes, and I thought it was an interesting European wing, because it felt like there was genuine warmth towards it, not least because West Ham had took European competition seriously for 2 or 3 years. Which I think the too many English sides are too contemptuous of the idea of Europa League and Conference League football, whereas West Ham, the club, the players, and the whole set of supporters took it deadly seriously. I think the transfer market in the summer, I think Ward-Prowse looks very, very clever indeed. Alvarez, I think, is clearly a good player. I think the solidity there, I think you're a top 10 side who last season underperformed, but won a trophy, which is incredible. A European trophy, which is incredible, and you're capable of winning another one. As far as I'm concerned, I genuinely feel as though West Ham will finish. I think if you finish below 10th, I think you've underperformed. That's how good I think the squad is that he's got. And I think you also get to see that in the Europa League. You know, he makes those 9 changes, but there's still a lot of quality on show. So, you know, there's not the hiding place of, well, if we get a couple of injuries, it gets harder for us. I think that's true of any team. If your better player, your very best players get injured, you know, if Paqueta gets injured or Ward-Prowse gets injured, you know, or Bowen gets injured, then yeah, of course, it'll be harder. Zuma, it will be harder. That's true of everyone, but there's still the options there. So as I say again, I genuinely think you should be knocking around. I think you and Villa should definitely both be finishing in the top half. And then from there, once you're in the top half, you know, a bit of luck, someone else having a bit of an injury crisis, you can then be looking at 8th, 7th, 6th. And I'll say again, I think there's every chance there's another bit of silverware. I think when players get the taste for it, they can keep going. So, you know, I think you can make changes and expect to progress in the AFL Cup now because of the strength and depth. And that's what the opportunity of the European runs has done. It's given real strength and depth to this West Ham side. So I'm impressed with West Ham. And I think that I don't think the good times have to end anytime soon. I think accepting that, you know, I think knowing there's not an easy, quick pathway to top 4 and talking yourselves into that, I think is really important. I think the way West Ham are qualified for the Champions League, the best route is to win the Europa League. So there's not, I don't quite see how West Ham put together a 70-point season. That's not what I'm saying, but I can see how West Ham put together a 58-point season and go really deep in at least one of the cups.
I'm enjoying this. You can keep talking about West Ham as much as you want, to be honest with you. I'm getting more confident. I think I'm ready for the Europa League now. Any players you admire? You spoke about a few, but is there anyone in particular that stands out? Yeah,
I've always liked Antonio, even though he's now coming towards the end of his career. I've always liked Antonio. I think he's exactly the sort of centre forward I think every team could do with one of, even if they're not starting every single week. I think everyone could do with one like that. I think that there's the obvious controversy and has been around Zuma. The unpleasantness a couple of years ago, but you can't argue with his ability as a central defender. I think he's an excellent player, and I think he would, I think he would be more than capable of going and playing Champions League football. I think Aguerd's interesting as a defender as well. I don't think he's a mug at all. I was dead entertained. I also watched a game against Luton as well, where this idea that Luton were going to rough up the West Ham centre halves was just ludicrous. Zuma and Aguerd couldn't have been happier. What, you're going to keep going long and go and put crosses in? We'll just head these away. Watch this, and that was sort of what happened over and over again. I like Ward-Prowse. I think there's a thing in football where people will often say, well, if you like him, would you have him? And I wouldn't have Ward-Prowse at Liverpool, but I think he suits West Ham down to the ground at the minute in terms of what it is he's offering. And so I think he's a good player. And obviously Bowen is, again, to go back to that final, he was always scoring. And that's a mad thing. You know, I've seen really good players miss one-on-ones in key moments and all that sort of stuff. And I think the thing with Bowen that's as impressive as his technique and his speed is I think his temperament is absolutely spot on. I think he's very present in games, very smart in games. And he is, you know, he's someone who I would back against every goalkeeper in a one-on-one situation in a way in which there's been more vaunted players, at times even better players, where when the pressure's on, it's not so much that they're going to bottle it, but you feel as though it's all a bit more of a lottery. Whereas Bowen, I think he's got that, you know, you just think about that finish and it's such a percentage finish. It hits the keeper as it goes in. He knows it's going to go close to the keeper, but he also knows it's going to go on target and he's going to have to do well to save it. And I think that that's what I mean by temperament. He's not trying, I think the most impressive Bowen thing is he's not trying to blast the net off through the corners a lot of the time. He just puts the ball where the keeper can't get it. And that's
sounds
like
simple, doesn't it?
Yeah, but it's a really underrated thing. I think Salah's good at that as well. You know, you think about just Salah's finish last night in the Europa League where he just puts it between the keeper's legs, but the keeper's got his legs wide open and he doesn't feel the need to whack it and he doesn't feel the need to, as I say, to try. You can always tell when Salah's finishing well is actually when his balls seem to trickle over the line. And I think there's a bit of similarities there with Bowen. When Bowen's finishing well, the great goal against Brighton, you know, so many forwards, not least because of the momentum of the move and the drama of the move, they blam that. And Bowen doesn't. He just puts it in the net and goes, that's a goal. Mm-hmm. And I think that Bowen's got that calm about him. And I think he's terrific, Bowen. I really do. And I think he's a massive asset to West Ham. He appears to love it there. You know, I think he is a player who could move on at some point. And if the Salah links to Saudi Arabia continue, there will be Bowen links to Liverpool because of the similarities as players. If Liverpool just want to replace Salah with like for like, but putting all that to one side, I just think Bowen is a good fit for West Ham and West Ham are a good fit for him.
If you were Klopp, I'd be terrified right now, but I think I know the answer here, but you've been strongly linked to Gerrard and Bowen. Would you like to see either of them at Anfield?
If Salah was to go and Liverpool ended up with Bowen, I wouldn't be going, oh God, what are we all going to do now? Because I think Bowen's a really good player. I think Salah's all-round game, his ability to bring people into play. I mean, just the number of assists he's got this season, but he's had for the last couple of seasons. You know, Salah's the best player. I think there's a really strong argument. Salah's the best player to ever play for Liverpool. Not the best player the last 5 years, not the best player since Gerrard, but he's possibly the best player ever to play for Liverpool. He's possibly better than Kenny Dalglish. Ian Rush is Liverpool's record scorer, and he scored over 350 goals for Liverpool. You know, this is the territory we're in. If you say that someone's Liverpool's best ever player, that's how highly you rate them. So, but there's a chance that Salah he's certainly in the conversation, and he could well be that. So the idea of anyone just replacing him is difficult. But Bowen has a similar skill set around the penalty area and so on. I think at the minute he plays for a team that plays in a different way, so it's not quite as straightforward, but it wouldn't be the end of the world. I think Aguerd's really interesting because he's shown he can do the defensive stuff. It's whether or not, you know, if you play centre-back for Liverpool, you tend to have a lot of the ball. So you've got to be able to pass progressively all the way through the game. And he's not really had a lot of chance to show that at West Ham yet. I think if West Ham have the season they have, then I think they're going to surprise a few people at home where they will be more on the front foot and look after the ball when they're coming up against the sides that are emphatically in the bottom 5, 6, 7, 8, because I think that there's such a gulf between West Ham and those teams that wasn't recognised in the table last season. But right now, for instance, West Ham are 5 times the side Sheffield United are. You know, undoubtedly, it's, for me, it's not a conversation. So you end up in this, when that happens, Aguerd's going to have a lot of the ball, and we'll get to see there a little bit more as to whether or not he can almost act as a little bit of a playmaker that you need to be able to do, I think, to play for Liverpool. So I'm less all in on someone like Aguerd, but there's no doubt in his ability to defend, and I'm obviously think that Bowen's great.
I tried to keep my opinions out of these videos because it's about getting your opinion, because our subscribers know my opinion. But what I will say is, because I know that our subscribers will be answering what you're saying about Gerrard, and Gerrard's really good in possession. You wouldn't know that. You don't watch West Ham. I don't expect you to know this, right?
No.
But he's fantastic in possession of the ball, and quite often he'll hit that 60-yard Van Dijk-esque American quarterback ball over to the winger, onto his chest, onto his feet, and he's superb at that. So defensively, he's a little bit suspect. Made an error against Man City, so he makes one big mistake a game, is rule of thumb. But one of his better strengths is in possession of the ball. It's just that we don't get to see it that much for reasons you stipulated at West Ham. Now and again you do. And he hits that wonder 6-yard crossfield ball onto Bowens, and he's running at his defender kind of thing. So if that's what you're looking for,
then I think they might be. I think they were looking at him In that, I think all these clubs anyway now. When you see X is being scouted or X is being watched, I'm always a bit like they're all looking at everyone. They're not looking. But I do think that he has been sort of in Liverpool's thoughts and considerations. And even when he was at Iran, I think Liverpool had a little bit of a look at him then. So we'll see if that develops. I think that's, in a weird way, I think that's a bit more likely than Bowen. In that, whilst Bowen looks fit than Salah, I think firstly Bowen just suits West Ham, but also secondly, I think when Salah goes, and I hope and don't think it'll be, I'm not as clear cut anyway, that it'll be next summer for certain and there'll be an offer that's taken, because I think the idea that Mo Salah doesn't want to play Champions League football if Liverpool get back into it and win major honours, I just don't see it. I just don't see Mo Salah and being the footballer he is now, deciding to go into what is effectively very, very lucrative semi-retirement. Like the lucrative part, because we all would, but you're looking at a footballer last night who comes on and he looks 10 levels above everyone else on the pitch in that Europa League game, and the defenders he play against at Saudi Arabia would be less good than the ones who are at LASK. So I just don't see it at all, really, that aspect of it. But I could be wrong, and money talks in the end for a lot of people. But I feel when Salah goes, Liverpool will look to do something a bit different, rather than build the play the same way. Like, not many sides actually build around the idea that the main threat is a right-hand side that's forward who cuts in on his left foot. West Ham do, Liverpool do. It's not that many others. I mean, City for a period with Mahrez to a degree, but they always had another threat somewhere else and all that. You don't build it around him, whereas Bowen's built around, Salah's built around. I think Liverpool might do it a little bit differently, so I don't think the Bowen thing's quite as likely. The thing that makes Aguerd difficult, I think, is that I don't think Van Dijk's got any plans of not playing football anytime soon. So if Aguerd was 5 years younger and was doing what he was doing at West Ham, then I think that there'd be stronger conversations with Liverpool. But Aguerd also, he's at the peak of his career, and I think it's in everyone's interests. Like, footballers need to play football. I love having a big squad, don't get me wrong, and it's great when you've got one to fall back on. But if you think a player is really good, but then you look at your team and you go, we've got other really good players. I don't like the idea of football clubs hoarding the best players, like the rich clubs getting to hoard the best players all the time. I think you want to have strength and depth and you want to have options, but the idea that a 27-year-old centre-half comes when he's going to only play if Virgil van Dijk doesn't, I'm not sure about that. I'd rather give him another year at West Ham, see if Virgil's declining a little bit, and then you're bringing someone in to start ahead of Virgil, or alternatively go and get a 20-year-old who can spend 2 years learning from Virgil and then at some point, pass the torch on. So I wonder with the age, if Aguerd just never quite sort of happens around Liverpool and then he gets to play for West Ham, who, if everyone does the jobs properly, will still be playing European competition every year.
Perfect. Can I get, it's time for your crystal ball now, Neil. Can I get how you think Sunday will go and your score prediction, please?
I would, as strange as it might be, I would rather Liverpool won 2-0 than 4-1, because I think a clean sheet will be something that was of use to us, and I think that we will win 2-0. I feel as though if Liverpool can not concede in the first half an hour, and I don't quite think West Ham will go at Liverpool in the first half an hour in the way in which a couple of other sides will feel like they've got a bit less to lose. I think in a really weird way, it's easier in a way currently to be a Wolves or maybe even a slightly better side at Crystal Palace and come to Anfield and we'll just throw the kitchen sink at it for half an hour and see what we get. And if we don't get anything, then I think West Ham are a proper football team in a way where, because they're going to do well, there's a bit more to lose. So I think they build into the game a little bit slower, and that will help us. While simultaneously, what I think it means is that we won't, for instance, do what we've done a couple of times this season, which is turn the afterburners on and blow West Ham away for a period, which is what we did to Bournemouth. I mean, genuinely, Liverpool, for the 10 minutes after they go down to 10 men against Bournemouth, they're absolutely brilliant, and Bournemouth can't live with them. Whereas that's in part because they put everything on the first half an hour. They were knackered. And Liverpool, before they got their act together and realised they were playing 10, they really forced the issue. We wouldn't be able to do that against West Ham, but I think, again, West Ham, I don't think will be... David Moyes will be considered in his approach to the game. So I think Liverpool will get a goal in each half. West Ham will play well. They'll keep Liverpool at arm's length. But when Liverpool go 2-0 up, everyone will sort of accept it's game over. A bit of handshaking, because I don't think it's in West Ham's interests to get whacked by anybody. I think there's some clubs who can handle getting whacked. I don't think West Ham if for West Ham to have the season that they have, they don't want to start to build a pattern where City put 3 past them, but it could have been 5. They go to Anfield, Liverpool score 4. I don't think that's what West Ham need. I think West Ham needs to just go, all right, the Liverpool and City games, we get what we get. And if that's 0, then that's absolutely fine because we move on and we're going to win next week. And then they win next week and no one has to panic or worry or do a, you don't want to be a talking point. You don't want to be on Talk Sport. You just want it to be one of those games. The flip side is if West Ham score first, all bets are off and they're a brilliant team on the counter and they'll make it really hard for us. So, I think Liverpool will know that. And I'm expecting a responsible game of football from both teams, that Liverpool edge.
Well, Neil, thank you very much. I've thoroughly enjoyed this chit chat. If you guys at home have enjoyed it, please do drop a like on the video by clicking the thumbs up. You can hear more from Neil over at Anfield Wrap. The link is in the description, all that good stuff. Please subscribe to Hammers Chat. I'll catch you in a bit.